Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in Brno at the Masaryk Racing Circuit in the Czech Republic for the penultimate round of the 2023 season of the Central European Formula 4. Cars getting ready on the starting grid to get going again for the second time today for the race number 2. Just as you hear the German anthem in the background for the previous race, we are ready on the grid with all the drivers once again, and it is Renault Francot on pole position once again. Renault Francot, who scored the victory in the opening race today, and he actually cemented his position in the lead of the championship standings. That is, of course, the first place. He came to Brno with 18 points of a lead in front of Ethan Ischer, who has already 5 victories to his name this season. Renault Francot scored his 3rd win, and still, thanks to, let's say, more consistent results, he is the one heading the championship standings. We have got the cars on the starting grid getting ready. The last preparations with the team engineers and mechanics as they are waiting for the formation lap to begin. Just over 5 minutes remaining for the starting procedure before we get going here in Brno. 5,403 meters, that's the length of the track. And as I mentioned, it is Renault Francot on pole position. Alongside him is Jensen Motorsport teammate and the championship rival Ethan Ischer, who tried to put pressure on Renault in the opening race today. However, he could not really manage more than that. He was very close indeed. Probably the best chance came right at the start of the race, where he was fighting Renault side by side in the first corner, but still Renault managed to come out on top of that one. And since then, he did not really give his teammate any chance for any overtaking opportunity. They were close all through the race, but nothing came out of that. What is going to happen in race number 2? We're about to see, of course. Further 25 minutes of racing action coming up now. Second row of the grid, that's Swiss driver Michael Sauter, and alongside him, Matthias Bjerre Jacobsen, the Danish junior, on row number 2. Behind them, Oliver Michel and Max Karhan sharing row number 3. Max Karhan, of course, the better of the local drivers. We also have Roman Robíček on the grid. And let's see if we also have Mirek Mikeš there. He did not contest the first race of the weekend, but he should be back for race number 2. It's been a long season already, but unlike all the other championships in the ESET Cup series, it's not the final race or final event of the season just yet. So we race in Hungary back in April, then in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, then we raced in Slovakia, Most, and now in Brno. And there's bound to be one further weekend a little later on. It was originally scheduled for the 7th and 8th of October, originally for the Balaton Park, but it seems that due to still things to sort out around the homologation of the circuit, we'll see if that materializes in the end or not, or if we have to go race somewhere else in or around that date. That's all still in discussion, so we'll see where the season actually ends. But Brno currently penultimate round of the championship. Renault Francot came to Brno with 170 points to his name, 18 points ahead of Ethan Ischer, and he gained further 7 in race number 1 earlier on today, with Michael Sauter in 3rd in the overall standings from Oliver Michel and James Agosi at 76. James Agosi being the dominant driver of the Red Bull Ring round earlier on this year. It was Ethan Ischer who scored the couple of victories in the opening round in Hungary back in April. from it was Michael Sauter second in the first race and Renaud Francot second in the second race. But both victories taken by Ethan Ischer then at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Both wins went to James Agosi. And then we had the Slovakia Ring round. It was Renaud Francot and his first dominant weekend of the season. Then in Most, it was Ethan Ischer back to winning ways, actually scoring victories in all 3 races of the weekend. That was the first one with 3 races per weekend. Now we're back to 2, both of them contested over the Saturday's program, so no Formula 4 racing tomorrow on the Sunday's bill. And we have got the drivers on the formation lap to get ready to get going here on Saturday afternoon. There's still one of the main points coming up later on today, and that is of course going to be the 1 hour long endurance race of the mixed GT classes and prototypes. So we'll be back with that one. But now we have the Formula 4 youngsters in their preparations for race number 2 here in Brno. So we've reached the highest point of the circuit and now we're starting to descend down towards the stadium section of the track, which is quite spectacular for the fans around. That's one of the go-to places if you come to Brno, of course, and you do not want to go to the main grandstand or the main straight for whatever reason. Then of course the next best spot for you is the stadium section, and there's no wonder about that, of course, because you see quite a lot of corners at once, so quite a nice spot to be watching the races from. Of course, that being the section where quite a lot of overtaking take place or at least get started. This is the Kevin Schwann's corner, the tightest corner of the track, the still downhill right-hander, and that's the one that sees probably the most overtakes on this track. And then we're starting to climb back up towards the finishing line through a couple of S's. And now we're getting back to the starting grid with Renaud Francot taking the top step of the grid in the Yenza Motorsport livery Datus T421. That's the current generation of Formula 4 cars. And we have got the Sape Motorsport liveried car on the grid as well. So Mirek Mikesh, unlike in the first race, he is back. So we will have 8 cars to start this race with, not only 7 like earlier on today. Everybody taking their spots on the grid, and the red lights are now coming on. And we are racing in Brno, and Mirek Mikesh in trouble immediately, but it is also Renaud Francot dropping the first place to his teammate Ethan Ischer, who's taking the lead into the first corner. Ethan Ischer now leading. This is Michael Sauter fighting together with Oliver Michel for third. Matthias Bjerre-Jacobsen dropping down to 5th, fighting now with Max Karhan. And then Roman Roubíček in 7th. Mirek Mikesh had a very poor getaway, very nearly didn't get going. Now he is away from the grid, but already losing quite a lot in the process. And the race has begun at quite some pace. It's Bjerre-Jacobsen coming back to P4 as he's dealt with Oliver Michel. And down the hill we go. Oliver Michel tried to have a go back on Jacobsen. Max Karhan following them. There is Roman Roubíček and Mirek Mikesh now coming into view. So Renaud Francot losing the lead at the start. He didn't really get a good getaway, and it is Ethan Ischer leading the race. So Yenza Motorsport drivers swapping positions, but they have been closely matched all through the weekend, actually, the top 4 in qualifying was only separated by less than quarter of a second. And the pole sitter and the second placed man on the grid were split by mere 44 thousandths of a second. So really closely fought weekend. So it's definitely going to be extremely hard for everyone to actually stage a fight. We did not see that many of them in race number 1, but now the order is a bit mixed up compared to the first race. So let's see what comes out of that as we're now climbing back onto the start and finish straight. And through the S's we go with Isher leading from Frankot, Sauter third, Jakobsen fourth, Oliver Michel in fifth, Max Karhan in sixth. Ethan Isher, of course, setting the fastest lap of the race on the opening lap. That's always clear. Whoever crosses the line first sets the fastest lap for the opening lap. 2:08.4. The times will of course drop significantly down, but there's less than 1 second separating Isher and Frankot, so Frankot still staying together with his teammate and keeping his chances for the second consecutive victory of the weekend alive. As I already mentioned, so far every single weekend was dominated by someone, so it's not happened so far, it's not happened yet, that 2 different drivers would win races across the same weekend. It's always been just one driver taking a full sweep each weekend. Each weekend someone else, but always dominating all of the races of that particular weekend. We're now leaving the stadium section for the second time today, with Isher still in the lead from Frankot. Let's see what kind of pace can Frankot actually find. Down into the Kevin Schwann's corner. Still hard downhill. And now we start to climb back up again. Cars sort of sliding around these sausage curbs to try and get the best racing line. And use also the AstroTurf behind the curb on the exit. One second it was across the line. With the lap times dropping, Ethan Isher 2:04.8. Renault Frankot did 2:04.9. Everyone else already in mid 2:05s, so losing further ground behind the leading duo. Sauter defending from Jakobsen, 1 second between them. Also Michel staying quite close to Jakobsen. 7/10 from Michel to Karhan. So also Max Karhan doing great job this weekend. It's only his second weekend of his career after go-karting. Some of the drivers enjoying their first season, some of them already with quite a lot of experience under their belts. It is sliding quite a lot. Drivers fighting for grip. Although by this point the track should be rubbered in quite nicely. We haven't had any rain, not even a hint of that. It's a wonderful weekend. Skies absolutely clear blue. Pleasant temperatures. Simply ideal conditions for race weekends to happen. Beautiful, beautiful weekend here in the Czech Republic, in South Moravia. And around the opening corner we go once again. Isher 1.1. They are still quite closely matched in their pace, but still Isher managing to be marginally faster. Every single lap he's adding a tenth. 204.9. 929 actually for Isher. Franco did 204.993. Which now sees the gap to increase to 1.1 seconds. Sauter 1.6 behind Frankot. Everyone's sort of similarly spread out. The only driver currently under 1 second behind somebody else is the 6th placed Max Karhan, who's trying to put pressure on Oliver Michel. 0.8 between them across the line the last time out. Everybody also trying to keep the tyres alive in the process. Not really an easy feat here in Brno. The temperature's rather high actually. Yeah, I said the weather's pleasant. Yeah, around 27 degrees centigrade the air, and it's not actually even that unpleasant, terrible heat, because already in the morning it's quite cold, in the evening it gets quite cold, so not so much accumulated heat. But the track still has over 40 degrees. If I was looking correctly yesterday, it even reached nearly 50 at some points. So that's quite a lot. So not an easy task for the tyres. Now Renault Frankot catching up a tiny little bit. 205.2 for Isher, 205.1 for Frankot. So it was now a little, well, the other way around. And the gap has dropped to 10th. And around the final one we go once again. .0 again. Frankot marginally faster, but really marginally. Actually, sorry, marginally slower, but it was 11 thousandths of a second, really. So not a lot to choose from. 12 drivers in total we've had across the span of the season. Some of them only joined the championship for 1 or 2 rounds. We had James Agozi joining in for the Austrian round, actually winning both races in the process. If I remember well, he was flying the colors of BHM Racing. We had Nico Taylor for the opening 2 rounds. Also Jiří Šafránek. And then Nandavud Birombagdi for round number 2, where we did have the BHM Racing present. They scored the most points across the weekend, 43 and 31, well, 74 in total. And it's been up and down. It's been the inaugural season. A lot has happened since the start. Of course, it's promised to get better and better as we get deliveries of further even tires and cars. And the championship is open to welcome way more drivers in the future, so let's see where it goes from now on for the further seasons. So we're now in the second half of the race. And look at this, it's getting quite close now in the fight for the race lead. Ethan Ischer dropping a couple of tenths now. 2057. Frankot was 0.3 of a second faster on that previous lap, and there they are, really close to one another. It's the closest fight we currently have. Brno Frankot with target locked. He's been reeling his teammate in, and he's now probably piling on small, tiny little mistakes. He's always a little, you know, away from the ideal line, away from the apex. Now they hit them pretty nicely through the last couple of corners. Ischer trying to make his car as wide as possible. Again, a couple of tenths chopped away. There they go. Renault Frankot so fast this weekend. And it appears as though he kept his tires more alive, actually. Frankot following his teammate, locking up in the right-hander, but still staying on the line. Sauter really using every millimeter of the track and even the runoff. The green AstroTurf stuff. We go now, exiting the stadium section, trying to make the exit as wide as possible to actually carry the most speed out of the corner into the Kevin Schwantz one now. 6 tenths between them, maybe even less now. but it's been rather hard to actually find an overtaking opportunity with the Formula 4s. The slipstream seemingly not so strong. But let's see about that. Really, these two drivers incredibly closely matched, but still Frankot managing to reel his teammate in, still being just a tiny little bit faster, fractionally, marginally, just a tenth here and there. Now we go, exiting the last corner once again. What is the gap going to be now? It's even less than half a second. Renault Frankot really getting closer and closer. 2062 for Isher, 2060 for Frankot, 455 thousandths of a second. And now they are really close to one another. We still have the fight for the race victory on our hands. It can still get pretty exciting towards the end of the race. Sauter losing already more than 4 seconds. He's off the pace with the race leaders. 206.7 for him. 6.8 for Jakobsen. 6.4 actually for Michel. That's not bad pace. And Max Karhan, hats off to him as well. He made his debut on the previous weekend in the Czech Republic at Most. But now he's way closer to the pace of the race leaders than he was. So making quick progress early on in his career. 206.4 for Mikesh as well. So he's not just hanging around. Roman Robíček on his own terms, on his own pace. Across the line we go once again. Now I guess the gap is going to be slightly bigger. Yes, 5.55. Renault Frankot looking for an opportunity, which is really not coming easily with the Formula 4 cars. Now look at this. A Czech fight for P6. Mirek Mikesh has caught up with Max Karhan. And they are going to fight together, just quarter of a second between them. So towards the end of the race it's getting exciting again. And we have potential 2 fights on the cards. Mirek Mikesh reeling in Max Karhan. He's going to have a look down the inside into the Kevin Schwantz corner. He's launching an attack and through he goes. Beautiful move from Mirek Mikesh. Coming up to P6 in his Sapa Motorsport car. He was unlucky earlier on as issues prevented him from starting race number 1. But now he is back, and he's just taken fight to Max Karhan for 6th. How about Isher and Frankot? Under 4 tenths from one another. It's really close between the race leaders. They were really close across the line this time out. There they are, the Enza Motorsport cars, 3.5 minutes left, well, away from home. Is Renault Francois going to try something? It needs to be calculated, it needs to be careful, but also aggressive at the same time. We know that it's been a hard job and hard work for Renault Francois to get this close, because they are really closely matched, so at best he's able to chip away tenths of a second, and rather low ones, or low number of tenths. And that just means that if he puts a foot wrong, if he makes a mistake, drops it, loses a second, then that's pretty much it. Now was a slightly wider exit from the stadium section. This is costing him crucial hundreds and tenths, honestly. Ooh, further lock-up by Renault Francois. And with that, his chances of taking the victory in the second race as well are just narrowing down. And Ethan Ischer, who was 4th in quali, 4th on the grid earlier on today, made a great start and jumped immediately up to second, then was second on the road in the race as well. He started from the front row alongside his teammate and jumped him at the start immediately, right away. And since then, he's not really put a foot wrong. 6 tenths between them now. And I believe that Renault Francois' tyres are no longer so fresh. He had another lock-up into the first corner, and we're on the final lap of the race. Final lap of the Formula 4 race here in Brno. So into the final sector we go for the last time today. Another lock-up. Yeah, he really wants it too much now, and he's just not getting closer. So he was once as close as 3 tenths, but that was still the best that he could manage, Renault Francois. And it appears that for now, finally, it's going to be a weekend of 2 different drivers. So not just one taking glory in all of the races, because it is Ethan Ischer on course to get a victory number 6 in 2023. We're now exiting the final corner. Ethan Ischer is going to make that true. Ethan Ischer taking a victory in the second race of the weekend from Renault Francois, who, if this is the final race of the season, will become the inaugural Formula 4 Central Europe's champion. Michael Sauter comes home 3rd. Oliver Michelin 4th from Matthias Bjerre-Jacobsen, and it was just a tenth of a second between them on the previous lap across the line. Mirek Mikesh coming home 6th from Max Karhan and Roman Robíček. But Ethan Ischer victorious in this race. Renault Francois second, and he was 6 tenths of a second behind. as they cross the finish line under the checkered flag. So, as I said, if this is the season finale, then Renault Frankfurt would become the champion. We're supposed to have one more round left, but it is rather unclear right now when and where. So stay tuned, and we might be back for more this season. Otherwise, for the rest of the ensemble of the ESET Cup Series, this is of course the season finale, as is usual, here in Brno. And that's it for Formula 4 race number 2. We of course still have one more race to do later on today, as we're still expecting the endurance race a little later on, in about, well, just over 1 hour's time. We'll be back. And with the results, it is now time to switch off momentarily. As I said, in an hour or so, we'll be back with the endurance race to top of the Saturday's program. But for now, it is a very warm goodbye.